Hello knitters, Barbara Benson here. I am an independent knitwear designer, but today we're doing something a little bit different than I normally do. Um, Today we are going to make stitch markers. I'm going to show you how I make my favorite style of stitch marker. And fair warning, I am not a professional jewelry maker. I am not an expert beader or anything. This is me just doing the bare minimum of what I learned how to do. So if you want to struggle along with me and learn how to make the style of stitch marker I like, then please continue on. If you are looking for someone who can answer in-depth questions about beads or beading tools or jewelry or anything like that, I'm not the one. I am not the one who is going to be able to do that for you. This is the shiny. I got distracted and learned how to do this once, and I'm going to share it with y'all. So here are what we are going to need to make my personal preferred style of stitch marker. So this is bead stringing wire. Beadalon is a very common. This one says 7-strand. I have no idea what that means. It does tell you how much of this I have. Enough to last me pretty much for my entire life is going to be my guess, one stitch marker at a time. It also has this really interesting piece of information here. See, it has this little tube and it says number 2, and it has a little bead and it says number 1, and that is telling you what the next thing we're going to need. We're going to need a crimping device, and I have crimping tubes. You can also get crimping beads. I use tubes. This says this wire needs a size 2 crimping tube, and that is what I have here, and they come in these ridiculously cute little containers. Again, Beadalon. I'm pretty sure this is the brand they sell at Michael's because, as I said, this is not something I do particularly well or fancily. And so there are different colors. We've got silver, gold, kind of a rose. Here, let me see. This is like a hematite kind of color. We've got the gold, we've got the silver, and we've got like a rose gold. We're going to leave that little tube here. And then you're going to need the crimping tool. This is the tool with which you make this squish together with this. So this is called a crimping tool. We'll talk about it in detail a little bit later. You're going to need a cutting tool. This is a wire cutting tool. You can see it has like one flat side, and you can see that the blade is, hang on, get out of here. You can see that the blade is angled, and so the way this works is you can flush cut up against something with this side. If you try to cut this way, there's going to be this big distance between where you're cutting, and so you're going to have like ends. If you want to flush cut, you do it from this side. So I've got these little guys, chompy, 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 and then these bigger guys, and then beads. You're going to need some beads because this is the style I like, is a beaded dangly stitch marker that has a flexible core to it. I also have some other beads here. You can get all kinds of interesting beads. I got these from earthfair.com. This one has mixed triangle shapes and they're super pretty, and this one is little squares. Some of them have like silver insides and some of them have purple. Let's get out some of these. My tag just fell out. Oh well, into the garbage it goes. Let's make our first stitch marker with a few of these from Earth Fair. So look, there's this solid gray. I like this clear on the outside with a purple core. How pretty is that? So let's do just a couple of those for my first stitch marker that we're going to make here. And I'm going to say how shiny that is. I'm going to want the silver crimp. So this has this tiny, tiny little stopper that I'm going to have to open up. And I'm going to get it out. See, 2 came out. I'm going to put 1 back and put out down this. It's stuck to my hand! Tiny, tiny silver crimpy bead thing. Not bead. This is the tube. These guys are going to the side. So look how tiny that is. They're so small. Now, so we've determined we have all of our tools. You get out of here. We have all of our tools ready. We have determined we're using these 2 beads and this tiny, tiny, gosh, that thing is tiny. Is it a size 2? It says size 2. But it looks really small. I feel like maybe a smaller one snuck in there. No, it's just on its side. Okay, you guys, I bet y'all can barely see this thing that I'm talking about. It's just a little tube. Let me put it in my hand so you can see it. See? Focus. It is a tiny, tiny tube. There we go. This is pretty much what you need. Cutting device, squishing device, beads, wire. And so these wire works, this little plastic thing like rotates, and that's how you get more. If you just pull on this, it doesn't like feed. You like move this plastic cover. So what I'm going to do here is I have a knitting needle, and you need to decide what size knitting needle you are going to want this stitch marker to fit. So if you're going to want to be using like 10s, you're going to have to make the loop bigger. If you're using smaller needles, make them smaller. You just make them whatever size you want. So I'm going to put this knitting needle here and wrap it around. And so I'm going to scooch the beads up here. So I'm going to show you. I'm going to scooch probably the beads up to about there. And they're going to take up a little room, and then I want a little extra. Again, I got a whole lot of this stuff, so I'm not going to worry about being too precise on this. I'm going to, but I don't want to waste it. So I'm going to go with about there. You can see this end. I'm going to put my thumb right there, let go, get my cutting tool, and snip that right there. See? So easy. So this, done. Done with that piece of the puzzle. Now, I have my piece of wire. I'm going to fold it into a U-shaped loop and even up. It's not going to stay even, but I'm evening it up just a little bit. And then I'm going to pinch that loop between my thumb and my forefinger to try to hold these points as close to each other as I can, so that I can slide them through the bead hole. See what I did there? So they're through the hole. And then I'm going to put on another bead. You could put on different beads. You could put on different colors. You could put on one giant bead. You could do, it's yours. You can do what you want. So there I put on the second bead. And as I said, I want to think about how far I'm going to push this up, because if you push, like if I wanted to add a third bead, I would still need room for my crimp, and then that would make this whole, this would make this, see how much smaller that makes it. So you got to think about how much space you have for your beads, how much space you have for your crimping tube, and how much space you're going to need for your actual knitting needle. So I think we're just going to stick with 2 on this one. Now, I'm pulling this up. I'm pulling these beads up with my right hand. And let me tell you, they're wanting, boing, see that? They're wanting to go back down, because this has enough tension to want to stay open. So I'm pulling this back and then pinching so that, again, I have the 2 ends. And now I have to put these 2 ends into this tiny, tiny hole. Oh, it went so fast. There you go. You can see I put the ends through, those 2 ends through the crimping tube. And I'm sliding it up to leave a little bit of space down at the bottom, just because I don't want it falling off. I mean, if you're like super skilled, I think you can crimp like directly on these ends. I am not super skilled, as we mentioned. I just play one on TV. So I'm shifting this so I can get it into my left hand because I am right-handed, and it's going to be easier for me to handle the crimping tool with my right hand. Now, as I was moving, you can see, hopefully you can see that these became uneven. So I'm going to try to even them out a little bit more. Come on. And now I'm going to slide this crimping tool down, not the tool, this is the crimping bead, down, because I don't want to waste too much of this. So now, I have this in my hand, and now we need to talk a moment about the crimping tool itself. I'm going to use this to point, because my hands are now full. You can see that this tooth, this prong of the crimping tool, you know what, this is in the way. These guys, out of the way. Has two, one bigger and one smaller, like half moon indentations on this side. And then if you look closely on the other side, you have one half moon indentation and then one that's like two little tiny indentations. These are two different steps in crimping. This is the crimp and this is the squish. Is that the technical term? I have no idea, but it's how I think of it. So first thing we're going to do is crimp. So we're going to lay the tube in the back of the tooth. Can you see it's not this front one, it's the back one. And you can see with me doing all this gesturing, it's slid. So I'm going to push this. So you put it in there and then you squeeze it. And you can see when I squeezed it, it's squished. Now, ideally, you want to have it positioned. See how it's kind of like a heart or a kidney bean shaped? You want one of the wires in one of the lobes and one of the wires in the other lobe. Mine was kind of crossed. It's not the end of the world. I'm not going to be worried about it, but you can see that it's got that kidney bean shape and the wires are coming out of it. Now that that is there, you go to the forward crimpy dude, right? And you want to put, you can see here, this has been flattened out. We want to put this into the forward one perpendicular. Let me see if I can show you. It's not laying down in it like it was in the other one. Let me put my fingers behind here, see if you can see it better. You want it, see the kidney bean is perpendicular to the hole. And then what we're going to do is squish it again. Squish, squish, squish. Needs a little hand strength, but we're all knitters. We have hand strength. And so what I've done is that folds it together into like a cute little heart shaped. It takes the kidney bean and turns it into a heart, and it makes it more round. You can see at the top it's kind of crimpy. And then we got these two guys sticking out in the bottom. And what I do is I come back in with the cutting tool, the sharp pliers. And again, remember what I talked about? We want the flush cut side. And I'm going to put the very tip flush against that crimping tube, and I'm going to snip, and that snips off those little ends. Now, if I run my finger over this, I can totally feel those little ends. If you want to take like a little file to them and smooth them down, then you totally can. But then, there we go. That is the stitch marker. This is my preferred type of stitch marker. I made a practice one just to make sure that I still knew what I was doing, because it's been a while since I've made one of these. This is the other beads. I have all kinds of beads. I love beads. I love putting beads on knitting. As you can see, this one's a little bit bigger. If you wanted to do this like more production style, like if you wanted to make a bunch, what I would do is determine what length of wire you wanted and cut a bunch of the wires first, and then just, you know, roll through making these as you like. So And as I said, you know, we've got these triangle shaped ones that I could make it out of. I've got a whole box full of beads, and because I put them on knitting and I like to do this. So there we go. This is the sort of semi-knitting related content in that we made knitting stitch markers. But again, if you have like detailed questions about this, I doubt that I'm going to be able to answer them, but feel free to leave them in the comments and we can see if we can figure it out together. If you decide to make some stitch markers, I would love to see them. You can always share pictures of them in the Facebook group. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, click that like button. And if you would like to be notified whenever I upload a new video, please subscribe to my channel and select notifications. Bye-bye.